Hey everybody, and welcome back to Freedom Factor. I wanted to do an update video to let you guys know what was going on. So I was going to do Project 2025 and continue with my deep dive and explanation. However, I wanted to touch on some things. I kind of put it on hold for a couple months just because there's been a lot of misconceptions and a lot of misunderstandings surrounding Project 2025. So I want to begin with why I didn't finish this, and I may finish it. It depends. We'll see how October pans out. But really, I wanted to kind of touch base on why this is important. Why, or more or less, why I'm kind of shying away from finishing the Project 2025 deep dive. And that is for the simple reason of why. What is the point? Project 2025, they claim, is their kind of mandate for, the new administration if a conservative administration comes in. However, that being said, none of the individuals are actually a part of the administration, at least none of the authors of Project 2025. And Donald Trump has repeatedly come out and said that he knows a couple of the people, but I mean, association is really kind of moot point. But he has said that Project 2025, he doesn't know anything about it, he doesn't care about it, he has his own policies, and really a lot of the stuff that he has said is inconsistent with what Project 2025 is detailing, what the plans are. I mean, if you go and read Project 2025 and listen to, or I guess read about all the different things relating to abortion, it is completely inconsistent with what Donald Trump has repeatedly put out as his kind of platform, his belief, and his plan for abortion. He straight up said it's a state issue. He likes it that way. That was what he wants, and leave it alone. Leave it to the states. I don't see Trump as, and this is one of the things that really kind of, and I really wish people wouldn't make me defend the man because I don't want to. I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm not even a fan of Trump. I don't really like him as a person. I like some of his policies, but that's kind of like anybody. I mean, I liked some of Barack Obama's policies. I liked some of George W. Bush's policies. So it's kind of, it's not something that really needs to be said, but just the fact that Donald Trump has distanced himself from Project 2025. I'm not defending him. I'm defending the truth. The fact of the matter is that he has said, this is my policy platform. It's on his website. If you don't know how to look up his website, then please, please, please get off the internet. But in reality, though, it's the fact of the matter is Project 2025 is a red herring. It's immaterial. It does not matter. It's not Trump's policy. It's not any policy related to what's going to happen if the GOP gets full control of the House and the Senate. And honestly, if November pans out well for Trump, good for him. He'll win the presidency and nothing is going to happen like this. The left continues to push this false narrative that Donald Trump is going to take away your right to have an abortion. And that is garbage. It is untrue. It is categorically false. And I don't understand why people keep pushing this. Probably because they're listening to the media and all their lies. I mean, if you really think about it, there is one thing Trump has said repeatedly throughout the years that I wholeheartedly agree with. And that is, the corporate media really is the enemy of the people. There's no splitting hairs on that one. It is straight up. They are straight up lying to the American people. And that's the other thing I wanted to get on today was all these lies. I mean, it's pardon my language, it's fucking disgusting that people fall for this shit. Like, how do you fall for these lies so easily? I do not understand. There are so many lies being told that people just fall right in line. They're just like, yep, they eat it right up like it's a big old bowl of sugar-coated deliciousness, and they are hook, line, and sinker swallowing it all. Wholesale. I mean, if you think about it, look at the lies surrounding what they've said about Donald Trump over the years. They said the very fine people quote is completely misquoted. I can produce videos of Trump actually saying it, where he says white supremacists and white nationalists condemned entirely and totally. He says that. They should be condemned totally. However, there are people on the argument between should we remove statues or should we keep them up. There are people on that argument on either side that are very fine people. There are people, and then he goes on to criticize Antifa, the people wearing helmets and black masks and all black and doing, whatever they call it, their Marxist black bloc or whatever. And he criticizes them equally, but he says in the middle, not the extremes, but in the middle, there are very fine people on both sides of the argument. There are people who want to keep these Confederate statues up that are good people. There are people that want to tear down the Confederate statues that are good people. And he's not wrong. He's not wrong. But the other thing is, people take what he says, they either clip it or take it out of context and then twist it to make it sound like he's saying these things. Like the whole, when he said, he didn't call all Mexicans rapists and murderers. So, and I won't even get into that one because that one's so full of garbage that people just believe it. But his other statements, you know what? We're gonna discuss the elephant in the room because I didn't want to go there, but I have to. Let's do it, shall we? And I know I'm gonna probably see dozens of comments on this, and I don't care. But here's the deal: you ready for the truth bomb that's gonna hurt? January 6th was a big fat nothing burger. There, I said it. Okay. It was not an insurrection. It was not a coup attempt. It was not an attempted overthrow of our government. It was not a subversion of the democratic process, which, I mean, to be perfectly honest, from a libertarian perspective, democracy sucks. It's mob rule. And I hate to use the old cliche, but it's 3 wolves and 1 sheep deciding on what to have for dinner. That's what democracy is. And there's a reason why America is not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic that puts the needs of the individual above the needs of the mob, the many, the majority. You do not want majority rules. Trust me on this. If we had majority rules, the majority would say the cis white men are the devil and, men are women and women are men and blah, blah, blah. No. So January 6th was a protest. And Donald Trump, as much as I hate how he held a rally that day, but Donald Trump did not incite anything. Okay? Can we be clear on that? He did not incite anything. Go back yourself and look at the video. Seriously, look at the video of what he says. I know you're all going to go down there, and I'm quoting him. I know you're all going to go down there and have your voices be heard. Do so peacefully and patriotically. If he was trying to get them to overthrow the frickin' government, would he say peacefully? No. He'd say go down there and tar and feather them, or go down there and whatever, pull them out of their offices by their toes and hang them up and beat them. No, he didn't say that. He said peacefully and patriotically, let your voice be heard. And last time I checked, we have a First Amendment right in this country to address our redresses to the government. That is one. If you have a complaint, you have the constitutionally enumerated right, The government cannot infringe upon it. The government cannot make any laws that stop you. If you have a problem with the way things are going with your government, you are allowed to say, I have a problem with this. You can write a letter. You can go and address them. That's one of the things you can do. You can go and address your congressman. You can call them. They publish their numbers for that reason, for you to call them as a constituent and say, hey, I'm a constituent. I live in your, either congressional or senatorial district. I got a problem with this. You can even go on the White House website, find where to send posts to, and write yourself a letter. That I'm pretty sure they have an email address too. It is 2024 after all. You can write to the president and say, hey, Mr. Biden, I don't appreciate this. Or, hey, Mr. Biden, you're doing a good job with this. You're allowed to do that. That is a constitutional right you have. Now, did the people at January 6th go too far? Yes, I agree. I will concede that. That a lot of them went too far. A lot of them did not. A lot of them were simply just standing outside. And you know what? Those were the good people. The people that went inside. Okay, so there were windows broken, destruction of government property. I agree. That's bad. We can all agree on that. Breaking the windows of the Capitol building and then storming inside is bad. I agree. There are also people who went in through the doors. And you know who held those doors open? The Capitol Police Department. Capitol police officers held the doors open for these people to gain entry to the Capitol. Now, you can get into the weeds on, did they halt the business that was being conducted in the Capitol building? I would say yes. That the individuals that did that, yes, they should be held to account. But they were not terrorists. They were just, in my personal opinion, I would say they were misguided. If anything, they were misguided and they did the wrong thing. And look, you know what? Let's just call it what it is. The stuff that was taking place the summer before was also wrong. And I'm not doing whataboutism. I'm just saying there's no logical consistency. There's no intellectual consistency when people criticize this one act but fail to criticize another. Similar. Worse, I would say, because more people died during the 2020 Summer of Love. More people were injured. More property was destroyed. And yet all these people don't say that, hey, both things bad. Let's just... I'm a firm believer in the NAP. If you don't know what that is, it's the non-aggression principle. It's basically, you are peaceful until it's time to not be peaceful. I will only act out of self-defense, in my own interest or family interest of self-preservation or preservation of my family. However, I adhere to the non-aggression principle where I will not act aggressively towards you to pursue any agenda or my own means. And it's something everybody can agree to. Now, with January 6th, it was wrong. And we will concede that it was wrong. No one is debating that it was a bad idea to go into the Capitol and riot. And yes, Ashley Babbitt lost her life because of it. Now, granted, I have my own opinions on that, and I will gladly share them. We're going to go there. I opened the door. I'm going to walk through it. Ashley Babbitt was murdered, in my opinion. And people will say, well, she was given warnings. Did you see the video? You can't hear shit when you're in that big of a group of people. There was a mass of people outside the doors, and that Capitol police officer, who was a lieutenant, by the way, and let's also not forget the fact that he had a previous incident where he left a firearm unsecured in a bathroom at the Capitol building where the public can go. So that guy was not... And I thought we hated the police on the left, but I guess if the police kill a conservative white woman, then I guess they're okay, huh? Which just baffles my mind. But at any rate, I don't think deadly force was justified in using against her. She was, I think one report said she was 118 pounds. And there were 5 police officers on the other side of that door. If those 5 police officers couldn't handle a 118-pound woman, then all of them need to turn in their badge and maybe go work a job greeting people at Walmart or something, because that's just beyond the pale. But I digress. The thing about the whole incident is Ashley Babbitt is the only person who lost her life that day. Yes, there were reports of police officers being injured. I get that. However, I already disclosed that the whole incident was bad. It was a bad idea for them to, push beyond, the limits of what their protest was supposed to be. However, none of them were terrorists. I don't think people understand when you go to these extremes and you use this hyperbolic language, it diminishes the ability of others to take you seriously. I'm just being frank and honest here. I can't take you seriously if you say the January 6th people were domestic terrorists or were insurrectionists or were, committing a coup. It's beyond ridiculous when people say things like that. I mean, it's the same as when people say that Trump is Hitler. If you make those comparisons that Trump is Hitler, the only purpose it serves is to make you look ridiculous and look like you're not a serious person as an intellectual, incapable of rational, adult thinking. Because let's be honest here, Hitler was Hitler and Hitler was evil. Trump is not evil. In my opinion, Trump's kind of an idiot, but he's not evil. And I really do, I don't think that Trump is this vile, disgusting human being that wants to end democracy. I mean, I already gave you my piece about what democracy is and why the United States is not a true democracy and why we shouldn't be a true democracy. But I don't think all these lies people tell, I don't think Trump is going to... And do people not remember 2016, 2017 through 2021, when Donald Trump was in office and lo and behold, he didn't end the world. He didn't end the country. The one thing I will say in his defense that was, I think, a great thing is no new wars. Now, I don't know his full plan because it wasn't able to be executed to the full extent as he had planned. But he did say he had a plan to get out of Afghanistan, and having been over there, having fought in Afghanistan, I feel like our withdrawal was terrible. Do I think Trump maybe could have done a better job of conducting the withdrawal from the executive office standpoint? Absolutely. I will give him credit for that. He may be a moron. He may be kind of, I guess, I don't want to say ignorant, but kind of aloof on foreign policy and foreign affairs. But I mean, he does have a knack for kind of having the smartest people around him, and in a way trying to get the best advice he can get from the people that know the most about that subject. And so I trust that he follows after that and can do the whole, hey, general who has expertise in this area, or hey, State Department person who has expertise in this area, or hey, intelligence professional who has expertise in this area. How do we go about this? I think he would have used that advice wholeheartedly and taken it to heart and done the right thing and gotten us out of Afghanistan. I want to say successfully, but there's no real success there. Withdrawing from a country you've been at war with for over 20 years, there's no metric to measure success with the withdrawal. It's basically what is the least damaging way to withdraw, and I think that the way the Biden administration handled it was extremely terrible. It was awful. I am pretty sure that I have friends over there who got murdered after the withdrawal, Afghans who were good people, who were who just wanted a better life for themselves and a better country and supported us 100%. And then, of course, we withdraw, and their chance, their hope of a future is completely gone. Like they've nothing. And and make no mistake, I don't agree with us staying there in perpetuity. However, there there could have been a better method to drawing down and ending in Afghanistan that doesn't just hand the keys to the Taliban and say, okay, yep, you guys are free to go back to the way you were in 2001 before September. I mean, and and since I'm on the subject, I guess I'll touch on it because I tend to have a little extra knowledge in this, and this is a topic that's kind of near and dear to me because I've been there. I was an intelligence professional for the United States Army in Afghanistan. I did the prep for Afghanistan. I had to brief my unit on the considerations for Afghanistan, not just the cultural, but also the political and historical. And the geopolitical situation in Afghanistan from roughly 1990, let's call it 95, because that's really when the Taliban kind of tightened their iron grip on the nation. From 1995 to October or so of 2001, the Taliban was the de facto leadership of the country. Now, a lot of libertarians will say we should never have gotten involved. We should never have gone over to Afghanistan. I disagree. And this is where I would say I kind of divert from the libertarian mentality, I guess, of there is I'm not an isolationist. I'm a non-interventionist. However, early in the 2000s, during the Bush administration, we were. I mean, if you don't know, I can't believe I'm saying this. If you don't know, then you might not be smart enough to grasp anything I've said so far. But in 2001, we were attacked. Now, the lead up to that, and I could do an entire episode, just like 45 minutes, just detailing everything leading up to it. But the basically the Cliff's Notes version is following the Afghan-Russo War of the 1980s. Because the Soviet Union, they invaded Afghanistan, and the situation was kind of tenuous there. So I won't get into it what exactly happened, but let's just put it this way: the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. We saw that as an opportunity for a proxy war that could kind of give a gut punch, kind of an FU back to the Russians for Vietnam. Because, well, let's face it, the Russians were involved in Vietnam, and they were helping the NVA. So we saw that as an opportunity to kind of deliver a couple blows to the Russians. So the CIA did some funneling of arms into Afghanistan, and we trained, equipped, and funded the Mujahideen, who are the warriors that a lot of them came over from Pakistan. A lot of them were Afghan natives, but then they also drew others from around the Arab world because they viewed the Soviet Union invading a predominantly Muslim nation as justification for jihad. And jihad is holy war. It was originally intended to be, historically was intended to be a defense of Islam. It wasn't so much just a we disagree with you, we're going to kill you kind of war. But anyway, so they saw it as justification for jihad, and a bunch of people from around the Arab world flooded into Afghanistan to fight the Soviet Union. And it was very one-sided from the beginning. The Russians were just delivering a beating to the Afghans. I mean, they were essentially doing some terroristic things. They had an entire campaign where they would murder civilians. They would use their Hind helicopters to murder civilians. They would have tanks roll in. And it originally started with the CIA giving the Mujahideen anti-tank weapons. And then they saw that this was kind of similar to Vietnam. It had morphed into kind of an air war, a helicopter war. And the Russians were using their Hind helicopters and Mi-8s, which are big, heavy transport helicopters, to deploy troops. And they had, Spetsnaz units were going in and murdering people, and they were essentially on their heels, and the Afghans were really losing a lot. And then they started funneling more arms into Afghanistan through the CIA. They got countries like Pakistan involved. They got countries like Egypt involved. There was even some involvement from Israel, which was kept very quiet. But so this all happened, and it turned the tide of the war, especially when the United States started giving the Mujahideen the Stinger missile system, which is a man-portable anti-aircraft missile launcher that could shoot anti-air missiles that were radar-seeking and would radar heat. I can't remember, but anyway, missiles that were shooting down there. I mean, they started turning the tide by shooting down helicopters, and this emboldened the Mujahideen, and eventually they got it to the point where in 1989 the Soviet Union withdrew from Afghanistan, and they declared this big victory, and then the United States completely fucked up everything after that. The whole aftermath was completely screwed. We could have gone in and rebuilt the nation, done some nation building there, like what we did in post-war Germany, like what we did in post-war Japan. And instead, we just kind of said, oh, we're done here. You guys got your weapons, and we defeated the Russians. Well, we'll see you later. And that led to Afghanistan falling into disarray. The country was widely destroyed by the Russians, and they lacked a lot of infrastructure, and these different factions began fighting, and a bunch of warlords popped up, and they started fighting, and eventually the Taliban, who was backed by the Pakistani government at the time, and still is today, by the way, the Taliban came and took over. They took power, and they took over. And of course, there was the Northern Alliance up in the northern area of the country that opposed the Taliban, that we kind of sided with when we invaded in '01. But at any rate, they were the Taliban were the de facto leaders. And so they kind of, got to the point where the country became kind of a mess of, I mean, they had civil war and all that, and the Taliban kind of ruled with an iron fist and was very hardline Sharia adherence. And so what I will say is that they followed a lot of very strict interpretations of what the Quran said. So women were not allowed to drive or vote or have rights or go to school or anything like that. And the Taliban was pretty awful. But then another thing happened. One of the leaders of the people that fought the Russians was a Saudi heir to a very big, very well-connected Saudi construction conglomerate, a family that had a lot of power, a lot of influence, and a lot of money, and his name was Osama bin Laden. Name we all know, right? And bin Laden felt that the Mujahideen that kicked the Russians out of Afghanistan were these very formidable warriors that would defend Islam. So when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, and he offered to the Saudi royal family, hey, my Mujahideen will protect the Saudi kingdom. We beat the Russians. Surely these Iraqis will be no match if they try and invade or whatever. Because that was the big fear, was Saudi Arabia was scared that the Iraqis would invade them because they were after oil. They wanted to put the squeeze on the whole oil of the Middle East and all that. So when Bin Laden laid out this offer, the Saudis had a better offer. Their longtime ally and trading partner, the United States, who had the largest military in the world by far and the most powerful military in the world by far. And the United States said, hey, we've got this agreement with you that, we maintain the lines of trade open between our countries, and we will protect the interests in that country, namely oil. But still, we helped them discover oil in the 1920s. So that's where that relationship came from. And this pissed off bin Laden. Bin Laden was like, how dare these infidels, these non-believers are in the holiest country in the world, which at the time it was still in Islam is Saudi Arabia, and he saw that as an affront. I think he would have been less upset if we had defeated Iraq and then left, but we didn't do that. We stayed in Saudi Arabia. We maintained several bases in Saudi Arabia. We still had a very heavy military presence there. We also had a very heavy civilian presence before all this. In Riyadh, there's a whole Aramco, the American Arab oil company that's a big partnership between Saudi Arabia and America, is based in Riyadh. There are American oil workers there. But that's neither here nor there. But so bin Laden was very upset at this, and he saw this as an affront, and he was very vocal against the Saudi, royal family, and that led to him, one, being excommunicated from his family. He got exiled. He had his passport revoked, his citizenship revoked, and he left Saudi Arabia and went to Africa. Spent some time in Africa, and then in the mid-90s, he moved to Afghanistan, where the Taliban gave him safe harbor, free reign. That's the one thing. A lot of people say that 9/11 was planned by a bunch of men in caves. That is not the truth at all. That is so far from the truth. No, 9/11 was planned by a bunch of guys who essentially had free reign around the entire country, the support of the Taliban government, allegedly, possibly even the support of the Pakistani government. And, a lot of people try and lay blame for 9/11 on Saudi Arabia because 17 of the 19 hijackers were Saudi. However, not exactly. The Saudi royal family has nothing to gain by attacking the United States. We are in 2000 and 2001, we were one of the largest importers of Saudi oil. We were one of the largest supporters of Saudi stability. We provided security for the Saudi kingdom. I mean, we equipped their military. We trained their military. The Saudis fly Apaches. I don't know if you knew this, but the Saudis have Apache gunships. The Saudis have M1 Abrams tanks. The Saudis have F-15s and F-16s. The Saudis have American equipment. And why would they attack the hand that actually is feeding them? So that whole thing doesn't make any sense. That's just people talking that don't know what they're talking about. Now, the fact that some of the hijackers were Saudi citizens is kind of, it doesn't matter. Terrorists come from no nation. Terrorists claim one thing and one thing only, and that's allegiance to their cause. They don't have, and the other thing about, I guess, the Middle Eastern culture, and also kind of Central Asia too, if you want to count. Afghanistan's a perfect example of this. And to kind of break this down so that people can kind of understand, in Afghanistan, so in America here, we have this kind of hierarchy, where, everybody all kind of identifies as an American. And then if you're from, I won't say Texas, because they kind of identify as Texans before Americans sometimes. But no, you have people, let's say, an Iowan. So you identify as an American first, and then you and your group, you identify as Iowans. And if you're from Des Moines, You identify as an American Iowan from Des Moines. And then, your neighborhood or whatever school you went to, you identify with that. And then you identify as your family. Well, in Afghanistan, it's the complete opposite. They are first and foremost, above all else, of this familial unit, this family. They have their mother, their father, their cousins, their aunts, their uncles. That is who they most closely group and identify with. And then they are of this tribe. And usually a tribe is, it's kind of outside the family, but not too far outside the family. Maybe even village ties. So, your tribe is from the same village or the same region. So then they're of that village and of that region. Like, for instance, Wardak. A lot of people from Wardak, which is a province in Afghanistan, they identify as being from Puli Alam, and they identify as the family and the tribe, and then from Puli Alam, Wardak, and then maybe they're Afghan, but not. It's not as important. They don't have this national identity belief, and so with terrorism, they don't. A lot of them don't identify as being a certain nationality. Syrian or a Lebanese or and the only kind of outliers the Palestinians, because a lot of Palestinians kind of view themselves as Palestinians, and that is kind of really important to them. But a lot of Saudis, they identify as Saudi, but it's not the top identity that they identify themselves with. So when a terrorist joins an organization such as Al Qaeda or the Haqqani network or ISIS or any number of these groups, they see themselves as a Muslim before anything else, or as they're representing their family and the ideology of that group, and their jihad is the most important. So they don't care what country they're from. They represent no flag. They represent an ideology and a belief. And so that's where a lot of people get it twisted, and they're like, oh, 9/11, the Saudis. And I won't entertain any of the conspiracy stuff about, George Bush committed 9/11, because I won't entertain that malarkey at all, having seen a lot of the documentation. And I even wrote a thesis in Intel school about the number 2 guy in Al Qaeda and his role in planning and executing 9/11, and how they chose who they chose. And a lot of that stuff is, I don't know how far I can go on that, because a lot of that information was classified. The nuts and bolts of what Ayman al-Zawahiri was planning with bin Laden on that. But we have intelligence documents. Let's just put it that way. There are intelligence documents out there that are, and they claim responsibility. These people are very proud of things. They won't claim stuff they didn't do. It'd be like, LeBron James trying to say that he won the national championship for the Nuggets. He didn't do it. So, they won't. Nobody will claim something they didn't do from this kind of mentality. So there's that. There's Afghanistan. So our withdrawal from Afghanistan kind of, I think, was really poorly done, and kind of wrapping it all up onto that. Yes, I do believe, for all his faults, Trump would have done a much better job leaving Afghanistan. Would it have been perfect? Probably not. But I think probably the worst thing we could have done was pulling out of Bagram in the middle of the night and not notifying our partners in Afghanistan that, hey, we're leaving. Good luck. That was kind of underhanded. And then, of course, leaving a lot of the civilian assets in Kabul while we withdrew the majority of the military assets. It should have been the other way around. You withdraw your civilians under the protection of your military, and then you pull your military. But what do I know? I only served. I wasn't in position to make decisions and all that. But I just think that that whole thing was really poorly handled, and it needed to happen though. We needed to end Afghanistan, and maybe one day I'll do an episode on what winning would look like in Afghanistan, what it should have looked like from my perspective. But that is another story. I've already gone long enough on this topic already. So, really kind of just wrapping up, I wanted to kind of do this to say that will I end up doing part 3 of what is Project 2025? I don't know. At this point, it's looking unlikely. I'm not going to just say definitively yes or no. But really breaking it down, I feel could have been beneficial, yes. But on the other hand, it's kind of like, why? It's a moot point. It doesn't make sense to do it because, it's not something that's going to be implemented if Trump wins the election in November. And I know we're kind of approaching October and all that, and we're getting pretty close, but it's like, give it a rest. These people talk about Project 2025 like it's the leftist version of QAnon. It's Pizzagate for leftists, and I don't understand the obsession with it. Even at the debate, Kamala Harris brought it up, and Trump kind of gave her that look like, lady, what are you talking about? Like, he doesn't endorse this. It's not his people that drafted it. It's people he knows, a couple of them used to work for him. Cool. So what? I mean, that's neither here nor there. There's plenty of people left over from the first Bush administration that worked with Clinton, that worked with Bush Jr., that worked with Obama. So it's like, who cares? These guys are not representatives of the Trump campaign. So it's kind of dumb to kind of hitch your mentality to the Project 2025 horse and think that that's this big nefarious evil plan by Donald Trump to, I don't know, kill gays. I don't know what are they saying? They're saying all this crazy talk like they're going to make being transgender illegal. It's absurd. Trump came out and said in one of his speeches that we have to protect LGBTQ community, that their rights should be respected like anybody else. And I agree with that too. I think that everybody should be free to, pursue their own pursuit of happiness and do whatever they want to do, love who they want to love, because at the end of the day, what you eat doesn't make me shit. So have at it. And I'm not going to get an upset stomach from something you consume. And honestly, it's none of my business. Now, I will say in closing that if you try and police my language and make me force me to agree with your beliefs, then I will have a problem with that. And I will say, no, I disagree. And I'm not going to do any of that. But that's another story for another time. So all in all, didn't plan for this to be a nice little history lesson on Afghanistan, but there you go. There you have it. Afghanistan. There's a history lesson on 9/11 in Afghanistan. And I just really implore everybody to just go out and just find the truth for yourself. Don't listen to these talking heads on the media. Don't listen to these idiots on Twitter. Don't fall into this echo chamber on Reddit or any of that, because honestly, you're better than that. Everybody is better than that. We can be smarter than that. We were, growing up, most of us were taught how to conduct a basic search and be able to judge a source on its merits and be able to, just be able to tell when you're being lied to. And it's absurd that these people, a lot of people, way too many, are like just falling into this idea that the media is this benevolent entity that would never lie to you. Yet that's all they do is lie anymore, and it's so bold-faced. You can't even, if you can't even see past that, I can't help you. So, anyway, that's all I've got for now. Catch you guys on the next one. Have a great day.